Namaskar, welcome friends. Vinod ji, welcome.
Namaskar, we are back with another discussion on very important story by Ravindranath Tagore.
Oh, so you are continuing with Tagore series.
Yes,
Last-
there are so many things
yeah.
to discuss about his literature,
Yes.
and we take this opportunity to speak on yet another story.
Renunciation, right?
Yes.
Our audience must have heard of this story definitely.
Yes, it
Very-
is also one of the celebrated stories of Ravindranath.
Yes. And Vinod ji, I would request you that we should, because the plot is a bit complicated.
Yes.
Before dwelling deep into the niceties of the story and critical approaches, let us recap the story as it goes.
Yeah, basically story starts in the flashback that way. It is the time of the night. Hemant and Kusum, they are newly married couple,
And
and Hemant is bursting with all the affectionate words for
Yeah.
his wedded wife.
Yeah, and he plays with her locks,
Yes,
and wonderful scene, very wonderful scene,
a very romantic
scene.
scene, and
Yeah.
even the nature, the moon outside the
Yes,
window is
yes.
shining, and its moonlight spreads on the bed of Kusum. So all romantic milieu is constructed by the writer.
And she utters a very powerful dialogue.
Yes,
She says, "I know a mantra.
yes.
If I say it, all the charm of this night will be broken."
At the outset, Hemant does not take these words seriously,
Yeah.
and he retorts, if she knows any mantra that can prolong the night, this Saturday night for
Yeah.
next 4 Saturdays,
Yeah.
she must utter that mantra.
Yeah. So, but then his father,
Hariyar Mukherjee comes in.
he comes and he asks Hemant to throw Kusum out of the house.
So this suspense is created in the story. Readers do not understand why Hariyar Mukherjee, Hemanta's father, orders him to turn his wife out of the home in
And
the middle of the night.
Even Kusum is not surprised at this.
Yes.
Why?
And then the entire story is revealed by
And before that, she tells him in the night that I want to tell you something which I have not told you. I wanted to tell you at the deathbed, but now today I am going to tell you. But before that, his father comes.
and father reveals everything.
Yes.
But Hemanta perhaps wants to confirm it from Kusum herself, and she replies in affirmation.
Yes. Then he
Then-
visits Peri Shankar in the
Who is the
morning.
main villain of this story?
Yeah. I mean, if we are to call him the villain, he is
Yes,
the villain.
yes.
Otherwise, he is a very productive role.
Right. Now, what happened? Perishankar says that 25 years ago, perhaps at that time, Hemanta must have been a very small boy, and he attended the school at that time in Calcutta. And therefore, perhaps he does not remember what Hemanta's father had done to Perishankar's family.
So Hemanta's father was the chief of the village.
Yes, and Perishankar's son-in-law had gone foreign, right? Foreign country. And in those days, especially in Brahmin community, crossing the sea was forbidden.
Yeah. So the village panchayat decided that he should
Be declared outcast.
outcast.
And Perishankar requested Hemanta's father that he must have mercy on his family and he should take his son-in-law back into the caste.
Or panchayat said that Perishankar should renounce his daughter and son-in-law, otherwise they will excommunicate him.
So Perishankar, instead of renouncing his own daughter and son-in-law, he left the village and went to Calcutta.
So there he was making his life again, but at the time of the marriage of his nephew,
Yes.
again this issue of caste was rigged up.
And Hemanta's father told the girls' parents that they were giving their daughter to non-Brahmin or Shudra family or whose caste had been defiled.
So from this onwards, then Perishankar maybe in a way now is taking revenge, or he has taken revenge.
And he
upon
tells
his family.
Hemanta that when his family was insulted like this, he took an oath that if any drop of blood, of Brahmin blood, runs in his veins, he is not going to spare Hemanta's family.
Yeah. Then what happened is that this girl, Kusum, she was a child widow, Kayasth child widow.
Right.
So she was not a Brahmin.
Yes.
And she lived the next door with a family.
Where
And-
Hemanta studied in the college.
Yeah. So both saw each other on the terrace of the roof of their houses and fell in silent love visually. with one
As it
another.
happens with
Yeah.
the young girls or boys,
Even today.
even today,
Yeah.
if they come into touch with one another just casually because of the school or because of the neighborhood, and then the mini love stories start there itself.
As they say in psychology, proximity is the main factor for falling in love. Nowadays, proximity is extended by digitally. That is another matter.
Now, Perry Shankar got this wonderful opportunity and ultimately manages to
Pass off her as a Brahmin girl and marries into this with Hemanta.
Yes,
Right?
and of course, Kusum knows that neither she belongs to Brahmin caste. Moreover, she is a child widow, and therefore she imagines these future troubles,
Yeah.
and she is reluctant to marry Hemanta despite her profound love for this young man. And even she requests Perishankar to break off the match just at
Before
the eve of the marriage.
She is in conflict. She is in two minds, or she is into many minds, right?
Yes.
A caste, then widowhood, but she is in love with this boy, Hemant.
And Perishankar convinces her if she is passed in marriage as a Brahmin maiden, and her secret would remain a secret for the entire life because nobody will come to know that she is not a Brahmin and she is a child widow.
Therefore, she doesn't tell. She wants to tell at the deathbed to her husband that this was the case.
Yes.
Because caste is defiled in a way, right? So now,
No,
why at that juncture then, Vinodji?
Perishankar has revealed all these things to
Yeah.
Hemant's father.
Yeah.
And now Perishankar sees when Hemanta's sister's marriage is finalized with another Brahmin boy. He says to Hemanta that earlier it was out of the revenge that I defiled the caste of your family. But this time I could not remain silent because my duty prevented me from defiling the caste of yet another Brahmin.
Brahmin. And this is revenge too much extended. Now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's why he broke this shocking news
Yeah.
to Hariyar Mukherjee.
Yeah.
Now the real conflict
Yes.
of the story starts. Now coming back to the beginning scene
yeah.
of this story,
Yes.
that it is the time of the night, and Hemanta and Kusum, they are exchanging the romantic
Or maybe
words.
it is the next day because in the morning he visits Perishankar.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. The next day.
Next
Yeah.
day perhaps.
Yeah.
Now again it is the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And Hariyar Mukherjee again comes on the doorsteps of this room and sternly asks his son, enough time now I have given you.
Yeah.
Turn this girl out of the home.
And she is clinging to his feet, Hemanta's feet. She's licking and kissing his feet because she has nowhere to go.
Yes, she
Right.
requests that he should have mercy upon her.
Yeah.
She knows that her fate is sealed for good. But still, there is a hope. In the last story, Postmaster, we spoke at
Yeah.
length about the lingering hope in the mind of a person.
Hope springs eternally.
Yes. So in some unknown corner of Kusum's heart, there is some hope that something miraculous will take place at the last moment, and she will be saved from being turned out of the home.
Now, Hemanta's mind, he knows it for the first time that this is the situation. He is the boy, and caste has been defiled. It was hidden from him all along. Now is the moment of his decision. What to do? Whether to obey father and turn Kusum, his wife, out of the house, or even he himself. What does he think?
So this conflict is between the pressure of the caste on the one hand and his love for Kusum on the other.
And thirdly, I would imagine, or I would infer, that this conflict is between the what ideals do you hold dear to your heart? Whether caste is dear to your heart than your wife?
And this conflict again is between the old decaying values of the caste and the new values of humanity.
Yes.
So Hariyar Mukherjee,
But Tagore has not even delineated this conflict in detail. He comes to the decision, what he decides.
and it is at the fifth night,
Yeah,
he says clearly.
yeah.
That means these 5 days
He has been
he has
tossing
been
around.
deliberating.
Yeah,
He must be
deliberating.
talking to himself. He must be going under this intense conflict that
Yeah.
what shall he do?
And he goes to his father and says that no, I am not going to turn Kusum, my wife, out of the house. Then father immediately says, then I renounce you.
Then I renounce you. Here, the two characters. On the one hand, Hariyar Mukherjee is the embodiment of the old traditional values, the caste values, the where the caste is above everything else. It is above the relationships. It is above love. Because Harihar Mukherjee, for the sake of the preserving the caste of the family, is ready to forsake his own son and daughter-in-law. Whereas Hemanta is the embodiment of the new values, where caste doesn't matter, where human concern matters, where love matters, where your commitment as a husband to a girl matters. And finally, he takes a decision that even if he is forsaken by his own father, it won't matter to him, and he will continue to be loyal to his wife, and he will not turn this girl out of home.
So he says, I will not renounce my wife, and immediately his father says, then I renounce you. So the significance of the title, Renunciation, is brought home in a very dramatic way.
Yes.
Now, Vinodji, I want to ask you, on the surface, apparently, this story seems very mundane, right? There is at least nowadays, we feel or we think that caste is no longer an issue, and if all this is in the name of the caste, then why such a big hustle? Why such a big trouble? And why there is any problem in making the decision? So what would you say?
In the first place,
Yeah.
I would take your statement with a pinch of a salt.
Yeah.
That the caste
Is outdated. Right.
Even today,
Yeah,
there are
even
official
today.
reports
Yes.
that 93% marriages take place within the caste.
Within the caste, yes.
Although intercaste marriage is finding finding a place in the society, and it is legally right or accepted. But at the same time, how many of us really have come out of the narrow confines of caste or class or religion or nationality or even language?
I think two things are there. On the one hand, we tend to think and behave as if caste does not exist, but certainly we behave in the casteist manners only at all the levels. And again, it is making a resurgence also in present times.
Yes.
Isn't it?
And therefore, though this story was written 100 years ago,
Yeah.
and the message of the writer is very clear that the times are changing. If we really want to call ourselves modern, then we have to rise above these narrow considerations of caste, religion, etc. But unfortunately, even after a century has passed by, that vision of the Tagore has not become reality in the modern time.
No, therefore, Dr. Ambedkar, when he argued for the annihilation of caste, he emphasized that caste itself, if it is allowed to exist in any form,
Yes.
it is bound to reassert itself sooner or later. Resurgence will be there. So it is perhaps better to get rid of it in toto. But it has
Exactly.
not happened even to this day.
It should happen because there is no other way. So far as we preserve these man-made divides, they are going to create problems at one time or the other. We cannot simply rely upon the wisdom or the maturity of an individual that he or she will not be affected by these divides.
Now here, the four characters, prominent characters, Hemant, his father, Kusum and Perishankar. I would take this story in a different way. Each of the characters symbolizes something very different. As I said about Perishankar, he does take revenge. It is not that he is liberated from caste or he does not value caste, but yeah, he is not
driven-
ready to renounce his daughter
Yes.
because the son-in-law went abroad. So he's dead against such rituals.
Again,
right?
you try to understand
Yeah.
when you contrast and compare the character of Harihar Mukherjee
Yeah.
and
And
Perishankar.
Perishankar.
They stand on a different levels.
Yeah, Harishankar-
Perishankar is ready to renounce the caste, but he's not ready to renounce his daughter and son-in-law.
Yes, he is
Whereas-
for the human relations, human
Yes,
values.
yes. So he rises in our estimation to a certain extent, right?
And even though he takes revenge, but he is aware of the proportionality,
yes,
that it should not exceed beyond a limit, beyond a level.
yes, and
Right.
whereas Harihar Mukherjee is not able to see the value of the human relationships, and he goes to the extent of renouncing his own son and daughter-in-law. So he has not changed at all. He is the embodiment of the traditional, narrow and orthodox values. Whereas Shankar stands in midway.
Yes.
He has gone a step ahead.
Yes.
He is ready to renounce caste in certain situation where when there is a choice between his own people and caste.
Yes.
And then Hemant is completely liberated.
Yeah. Before Hemant, Kusum, she is orphan, child widow, falls in love with this boy, and she knows that she is not Brahmin, so she can't marry. But when she receives unexpected support by Shankar, because he is trying to take revenge, of course,
Yes.
she doesn't know that.
She doesn't know that.
But she sees a hope there.
Now again, I will say,
Yeah.
Kusum brings altogether different set of values in the story.
Yes.
She is neither for or against the caste.
No.
Caste doesn't matter. Even if she is Kayastha and gets an opportunity to get married in the Brahmin family, of course, after initial hesitation, she agrees because love is all for her.
Yeah,
And it is a love that must be placed above everything else. That is what her character reveals.
Yeah, she says at the deathbed, I would have told you this.
Yes.
But at least she is for love. She is above caste. Conflict, she undergoes that conflict, that very much human conflict. But still, she is above at least the rudimentary, the robotic character like Hari Shankar. Right?
And the real, the character
yeah.
is of Hemanta.
Hemant.
Because he faces the conflict, between old and the new, between
And that
tradition
is
and modernity.
unexpected conflict. He doesn't know.
Yes.
He doesn't know in the beginning.
And it is not just under the current of love he decides that, okay, he will be going with his wife. It is not like that.
No, it's the fifth day. He thinks over, he goes to Shankar, he hears the story from Kusum.
Yes.
And then when the moment of the decision time for deciding finally comes, he rises above this, maybe thoughtfully, maybe emoto-rationally. I would say he rises emoto-rationally, emotionally as well as rationally. He decides that relation, love, spouse is much more important than so-called adherence to the castes.
Moreover, he perhaps understands that his wife Kusum
Yeah.
is not at fault. It is
Yeah.
none of her
Yeah.
mistake.
Yeah. And one more facet of this, his character takes him far beyond the ordinary. That facet is that when suppose some condition like XYZ, I don't mind this condition. If my wife is XYZ, if my husband is XYZ, I don't mind it. What difference does it make if I know it beforehand or if I don't know it beforehand?
This is a psychological question.
Yeah.
Rajeshji. There
Yeah.
something that existed before,
Yeah.
but it was not in your knowledge,
Yeah.
and it did not matter practically.
Yeah.
And on one fine morning, you know that something has happened. Again, it does not matter on the practical ground,
Yeah.
but only the knowledge of that thing disturbs you.
But if that fact per se by itself does not matter for me, then it should not really make a difference for a great, if human being is a real human being, it really should not make a difference. It was whether it was known beforehand or if it is known afterwards. Like
But
with
for
an example, I would
Yes.
like to complement it. For example, when we say that if a girl is raped, there is no harm in marrying her, right? This all we espouse, the good people. If somebody is good enough, they will definitely think that if a girl is raped, that is a forcible action on her, that is an accident for her, and there should not be a problem in marriage, right? But now X marries Y, and Y is wife, she is raped, but this fact is not known to the X. It becomes known, say, after 2 years. Then why should this only matter that it was not known beforehand? Had I known it, I would have not minded it. But now, because it is known after 2 years, then I will mind it.
But
Yeah.
Given all the practical understanding of the people
Yeah.
in general,
Yeah.
what do you think that the people will accept it is without any?
No. Generally, people will say that
Yes.
had you told me beforehand, I would have readily agreed. But now that after 2 years it is becoming known to me, no, it's not acceptable. This fact that you hid it from me
Yes.
itself is powerful
But
enough to
again,
reject
this is a
you.
garb that
Yeah.
you hid it from me. Basically, they are not
Basically,
ready
they
to
are not
accept
ready
it.
to accept the fact
Even
itself.
in the beginning, if it would have been communicated to them,
They would not have accepted.
Exactly.
But now they have got a ready-made excuse of delay, time delay. So here Hemant rises in this estimation also. Caste is immaterial for him. Had he known it beforehand also, or he comes to know after so many years, maybe some months or years after.
Again.
If it is irrelevant, it is irrelevant.
Again, a character like Hemanta
Yeah.
is an agent of change, a positive social change that Tagore and other such people wished should take
Yeah,
place in
yeah.
Indian society.
Of course, of course.
Because after all, we have to be connected to the society. We simply cannot say that we are unconcerned to the society. So writer, of course, not explicitly, but at the subterranean level, he must have his set of values, and that must be reflected in his writings.
And this subtle psychological current of if the fact is irrelevant, it is irrelevant even if it was hidden initially and has become known afterwards. This, I think, is very subtly portrayed by Tagore in this story.
But usually it doesn't happen in real life.
Yeah.
And here I am reminded of Thomas Hardy,
Yeah.
Taste of the Urban
Taste
Village.
of, yes.
Angel comes to know that Tace was raped by Alex.
Yeah,
But he comes to know after his marriage with her.
yeah.
And he renounces her.
Renounces her. Maybe he would have said that had it was it known earlier, I would not have renounced her.
Yes.
But because only that it is known afterwards, I am renouncing.
So here, again, you look at the character of Angel of Thomas Hardy.
Yeah,
and
Hemant.
Hemanta. So Tagore would appear to be far greater visionary and progressive. So this is very important issues, because literature is perhaps the real commentary on what goes on around us.
So renunciation, what should we renounce?
And what we should not.
And what we should not.
It has to be a thought out
Yeah.
process, a well rational decision, right? We cannot simply renounce anything and everything, and we cannot accept each and everything that has come from the past.
And see the irony, Vinodji. Renunciation generally is associated with sannyasis, with
Yes.
recluse.
Yes.
Here Tagore has employed it for the grahastha, for the married. And I am reminded of one story where they say, what is love story? Romeo Juliet is a love story. Laila Majnu is a love story. No, because they wanted to be together, they could not be together.
Yes.
But real love story begins only after the relationship begins. How do you live with one another day in and day out? That is the real love story.
So here Hemanta accepts Kusum, whether it was her mistake or not, even opposing his own father, renouncing his own caste. And this was really great thing, a bold decision, at least a century ago. So,
and I believe annihilation of caste by Ambedkar personifies, such stories do personify that philosophy.
Exactly. So what Ambedkar wants to say in his book is basically portrayed by Ravindranath Tagore in this story.
Yes.
So this is a really wonderful story, worth reading. So we appeal all our viewers, go through this story, enjoy the content and the beauty of this wonderful story,
and do not renounce our channel.
And please send your comments how you like these discussions, and with a promise that we'll be back soon with some other discussion. Bye bye.
Bye.